So we are so excited that we got to have this discussion today with Cindy Gallop, who, if you haven't heard her speak, if you haven't heard her TED Talk, it's something that you should do immediately. She has created this company called Make Love Not Porn, which is pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. And it's really about showing real-world sex in all its beautiful complexity and messiness and do-overs that is not in this highly produced movie set, which is porn. And what's really exciting for us is that she does answer the question loudly and clearly. Nothing is normal, everything is okay between consenting adults in a respectful relationship.
So Rachel, you know, one thing I see all the time from my patients is a quest to find out what's normal in the sexual world. How many times a week do people have sex? What are they doing in the bedroom? Who are they doing it with? And this is a question that I often answer. There is no normal. It's what's normal for you. So I think this is a very, very interesting subject to discuss today. Welcome to the Business of the V. Hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Alyssa Dweck.
And I'm Rachel Braun-Sherrill. Each week, we bring you the most fascinating investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, academics, and healthcare practitioners who are making things happen in women's sexual and reproductive health.
If you are a woman, know a woman, have a business, or care about your V health and wellness, fasten your seatbelts and listen in to another informative and inspiring episode.
We are so delighted to have our guest today, Cindy Gallop, who's the founder and CEO of Make Love Not Porn. In addition to that, Cindy is a fearless and tireless advocate for the entire space of femtech and sextech. She's an advertising legend, and she's an international speaker where people are beating down her doors to hear her always unique, always interesting, always educational perspective. Cindy, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to meet you, Cindy. I have to say, I watched your TED Talk now several times, really just completely taken by the reason that you got behind this business, which is that you said you like to date younger men. Now, in my practice, this is challenging for women to date younger men on various fronts. How did that experience lead you towards this business?
Sure. Well, you know, everything in my life and career has always happened by accident. So Make Love Not Porn was an accident, and dating younger men was an accident. So I used to run an advertising agency, and about 20 years ago, we were asked to pitch for an online dating brand. And in the advertising industry, when you pitch for a client's business, you have to experience the client's product and the entire competitive landscape. So we all had to online date. And this was 20 years ago, and none of us ever had, because 20 years ago, online dating was not a thing. So the rest of my team at the agency who were working on the pitch were, you know, married, living with people, dating. They all went online as fake personas. They created false identities. I was single. I thought, you know, I have to do this for business reasons. Why not do it for real? Why not find out what this whole online dating thing is all about? And so I went online, you know, posted my profile on a bunch of sites, including our clients, was very honest about everything, including my age. And I mean, I received very flatteringly an avalanche of responses, very good for the ego. But much to my surprise, because I had not thought about this as a dating strategy, the majority of those responses were from younger men. And in fact, a large amount of them were from much younger men. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had not particularly thought about dating younger men at that point, but I'm somebody who's never wanted married, never wanted children, you know, have no interest in settling down. And at the time, I just wanted to have some fun. I just started up an advertising agency in the world's toughest advertising marketplace, Madison Avenue. I was working 24/7. Fun was severely missing from my life. So I thought, okay, let's give it a whirl. And I've been dating younger men very happily ever since.
Well, it makes perfect biologic sense. Women tend to reach their sexual primes a little bit later than men. So you had something to that.
And actually, I'm deliberately very public about it because I deplore the fact that in our society, older man, younger woman, no one bats an eyelid, but older woman, younger man is somehow deemed less socially acceptable. So I'm flying the flag for that because, as you say, many more older women should be doing this and many more younger men would be a lot happier if they were.
Kudos.
So
I love that.
You had described the dating younger men as just a happy accident from work that you were doing. And then years later, you find yourself on the TED Talk stage, giving a talk, which has now been watched millions of times. Describe that experience and how that talk and the response you got translated into Make Love Not Porn.
Sure. So, so there I was dating younger men 13, 14 years ago now, and realizing through dating younger men that I was encountering an issue that would never have crossed my mind if I had not encountered it so intimately and personally. I realized I was experiencing what happens when two things converge. And I stress the dual convergence because most people think it's only one thing. I realized I was experiencing what happens when today's total freedom of access to hardcore porn online meets our society's equally total reluctance to talk openly and honestly about sex. When those two factors converge, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. And so I found myself encountering a number of sexual behavioral memes in bed. I went, whoa, I know where that behavior is coming from. I thought, gosh, if I'm experiencing this, other people must be as well. I didn't know that because 13, 14 years ago, nobody was talking about this. No one was writing about it. This was me in isolation as an actually action-oriented person going, I want to do something about this. So 12 years ago, I put up for no money this tiny clunky website at MakeLoveNotPorn.com that in its original iteration was just words. The construct was porn world versus real world. Launched at TED in 2009, where I became the only TED speaker to say the words "come on my face" on the TED stage,
Many times at that, yeah.
Exactly. The talk went viral as a result, and it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated. Thousands of people wrote to me from every country in the world, young and old, male and female, straight and gay, pouring their hearts out. And so I felt I had a personal responsibility to take Make Love Not Porn forwards in a way that would make it much more far-reaching, helpful, and effective. And so I always emphasize to people, Make Love Not Porn is not anti-porn because the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. And so I redesigned Make Love Not Porn with this one goal in mind, to make it easier for every single person in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex. And to do that, I decided very simply to take every dynamic in social media and apply them to this one area no other social network or platform will go, in order to socialize sex and to make real world sex and talking about it socially acceptable, and therefore ultimately just as socially shareable as anything else we share on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram. And so that's what
I love this story. I want to let you know how I use your site in my practice. So I am going to come clean and tell you that I signed on as a fake name. So I'm in there, but you won't know.
I'm delighted to hear it.
But you know, let me tell you about a couple of scenarios. I have the young women who come in and tell me they've never had an orgasm. Can I show them what to do? And you know something, of course, can I teach them anatomy and where the action is? Of course, but there's nothing like seeing it for real. So I think that is a good platform for this, and it's safe. Number two, I have lots of women who come in complaining of lower sexual drive, not pandemic related, just because it's something that they come in with. And of course, there's many variables. And I often recommend what we call bibliotherapy. Look at erotica, read sexy books, get sexual thoughts on the brain. Your site is perfect for this because they can do it with their partners. And I think that's what makes it so enticing. What women get scared about in my office and get actually a little turned off with is that if their male partners, let's say, are accessing porn without them, they find that very threatening. And this offers a different type of platform. Just wanted you to know that it's very,
Oh my
it's very
God.
rational.
I'm delighted to hear that, because you're absolutely right. Make Love Not Porn as a unique venture has a unique capability, the ability to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better. And one of the reasons I designed it to be a social sex video sharing platform was because the number one use case for YouTube globally is how-to videos. It far outstrips YouTube's second biggest use case, which is entertainment. First and foremost, people use YouTube for how-to videos on how to do anything and everything. I designed Make Love Not Porn to be the global go-to hub for how-to videos on anything and everything to do with real-world sex. And so absolutely, if you want to know how to masturbate, if you want to see how other couples are having sex in the real world across the entire spectrum of human sexual behavior, we are literally education through demonstration.
So you've started conversations, you still hold that record, that notable record from TED Talks. I don't think anyone has said that on the stage since then. You've been very vocal about the challenges of building businesses in this space of femtech and sex tech. So where are you now?
Sure. So, I've spent the past 12 years parallel pathing two things, building my own startup and working to change the cultural context around it. Because I take my own advice that I give other entrepreneurs: when you have a truly world-changing startup, you have to change the world to fit it, not the other way around. And so I've worked to break down the massive barriers that exist to any venture that is to do with sex. And the good news is that I am absolutely seeing the impact of that happening.
Describe some of that in a little bit more detail. What impacts do you see? You're an advertising person, a business person, you measure results. What are you seeing that indicates that we're making progress in the right direction?
Sure. So, as I said, Make Love Not Porn's entire goal is to socialize and normalize sex in the real world, to bring it out into the sunlight. And so I'm going to start with what I've been seeing on our own platform, which is a very interesting indicator because we are utterly unique. The way I put it is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, we are the real world documentary. I designed Make Love Not Porn to be the Kinsey of today. Real world, real time, real life human sexual behavior captured the way nobody else is doing. So one very interesting indicator is that, parents have been telling us for years that just being members of Make Love Not Porn has made them feel able to be more open about talking about sex with their children. But what we've especially noticed in the past couple of years is that more and more parents are writing to us telling us that they are taking out Make Love Not Porn subscriptions for their teenage and 20-something children because they want them to see what happy, healthy, loving, real-world sexual relationships look like. That's a new breakthrough in terms of parents' willingness to do that.
Absolutely. Not only that, I think the biggest question I get asked is, what is normal? How many times a week or a month do people have sex? What's normal? What type of activities are normal? And I think what your site really shows is that there really is no normal. It's what's normal for you. I think that's particularly interesting. I wanted to mention this book that I read a while back called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. I'm sure you're familiar with it. These two MIT students were, set out to figure out some analytics and statistics about porn in general. And what they found was that so many behaviors were very counterintuitive to what they thought they were going to find in terms of what people watched on porn. So I appreciate the variety and the normalcy and the funny stories and the real life situations that occur in your site. Here's today's hot flash. I took a look through a really favorite book of mine called A Billion Wicked Thoughts by Ogi Agas and Cy Gautam. These are two genius MIT grad students who set out to do some analytic work about the porn industry and actually uncovered unbelievable behaviors that were going on the internet revolving around porn. So for example, they uncovered some startling truths. Men actually prefer overweight women to underweight women. Who knew? Women enjoy reading about two heterosexual men having sex. Men often seek erotic videos featuring women in their 50s and 60s. This is really, really fascinating stuff.
So to that point, Cindy, I'd love to hear you describe, you talk a lot about what happens in porn and how it's de facto education and not in a good way. Describe some of the really glaring differences between expectations that especially young people create around sexual intimacy through porn compared to watching Make Love Not Porn. Because one of your fundamental principles is this thing over here, this thing called porn, nothing wrong with it between consenting adults, but it's not real. What's not real about it? And what do people find the most surprising or amazing when they make that comparison?
Well, here's the really interesting thing about what we're doing at Make Love Not Porn, because, you know, porn purely and simply is masturbation material. That's its role. And in that context, you know, when people are producing porn, they're producing something that is performative and produced. We are not just masturbation material. By the way, we are that too. We're very happy to be that. But we are many more socially beneficial things on top of that you will not find anywhere else. So, you know, I think what blows people away when they encounter us is first of all, social sex videos on Make Love Not Porn are enormously reassuring because we celebrate real world everything. Real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breast size. And the reason that's so crucial is you can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love till you're blue in the face. Nothing makes people feel great about their own body like watching people who are nobody's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having an amazing time in bed. Our mantra at Make Love Not Porn is everybody is beautiful when they're having real world sex, and they really are. And so our members write to us and say, you know, you made me feel better about my own body, you know, by watching your videos. One man wrote and said, my girlfriend and I now feel able to be more open and sensual with each other because watching Make Love Not Porn made us each feel better about our own bodies. Then, you know, another thing that is utterly unique about real world sex videos on Make Love Not Porn is, you know, all around us in popular culture, in movies, TV, on Netflix, we see many, many creative narratives of relationships. Relationships are examined in minute detail in 50 million expressions in different media in popular culture, but we never see the sex. On Make Love Not Porn, you see the sex, but you also see the relationships. Because in our real world sex videos, the two things are indivisible. And so we are not just role modeling great real world sex, we are role modeling great real world sexual relationships because we celebrate real world emotion. Love, intimacy, feelings radiate through the screen. One man wrote to us, to the Make Love Not Porn stars in the particular video, and he said, the sex in that video was incidental. I want what you guys have. I saw the way you look at each other. I saw the way your eyes met. I hope one day I can meet somebody that I will have that with. And, you know, our members comment on the videos and they say things like, you know, your love shines through all of this. You know, I love the way you kept checking in on each other to make sure that you're okay. You know, one of our most recent comments, you know, somebody said, you know, I'm so happy that I've never found what you have, but I'm so happy I didn't settle for anything less because you have proved that you can build a kind of relationship where mutual love and trust means you're free to express yourselves sexually in this wonderful way. I mean, we get extraordinarily moving comments and emails.
Yeah,
and those are things you will never see anywhere else.
So even though this is focused on relationships and communication between people, how do you manage and condone safe sex practices on the site? Do you feel that that's each couple's or video's responsibility? Do you do any sort of education in that way?
So, first of all, everything about Make Love Not Porn was designed in a very conscious and intentional way, in a way that no other platform operating on the internet today ever did. So I knew exactly what I wanted Make Love Not Porn to be. And we are very clear in our FAQs, across our social channels, in every media interview, exactly what we exist to showcase. Consensual, communicative, real-world sex showcasing good sexual values and good sexual behavior. When you make it crystal clear to the world what kind of content you want, that is the kind of content you get. But I designed Make Love Not Porn around what everybody else should have and nobody else did: human curation.
Mm-hmm.
So our curators watch every single video submitted from beginning to end before we approve it and publish it. There is no self-publishing on Make Love Not Porn. Nobody gets to self-publish a video, a comment, a post on their profile. Our curators review every frame of every video before we approve or reject it and we publish it. We review every post on every member's profile before we approve and we publish it. We review every single comment on every single video before we approve and publish it. Nobody else does any of this, by the way. We can vouch for every single piece of content on our platform, and that is why we are the safest place on the internet. And by the way, our judgment is purely that it's fully consensual, fully legal, everyone's having a good time, okay? So on Make Love Not Porn, you will find the full spectrum of human sexuality. You will find kink, you will find BDSM, you will find pegging, you will find golden showers, you will find sounding. The difference is that we are showcasing the real world consensual version of that. So with BDSM, you see the negotiation beforehand. You see the boundary setting. You see the agreement of safe words. And then you see the aftercare. You see the coming down from the scenario. You see the cuddling, the taking care of, the soothing, the bringing back to the real world. Also, importantly, you see, and again, these are all things you will not see anywhere else. So you will see a couple who've decided maybe to role play, okay? So they are role playing a particular scenario. And halfway through, one of them goes, you know what? This isn't really doing it for me. And the other one goes, you're right, meh. And they go, let's just fuck. And then, and so it's very low stakes. It's very reassuring. We show you can try something and have it not work out and go, right, not doing that anymore. Right, give it a whirl, not so keen. And again, you don't see that real world approach anywhere else.
It's relatable. It's really relatable.
You use the expression before, performative, which I love. I mean, when someone says this isn't working for me, no one's saying cut, let's take two. It's really an experience that's happening. As you talk about your curation and your incredible attention to detail, you and I have both been on the other side of the fence where there isn't a person evaluating and most of it gets rejected. Is one of the biggest challenges the volume of curation, and is it so many of the other things that we've talked about previously: access to advertising, access to funding, access to credit card processing?
First of all, nothing about anything on Make Love Not Porn is a problem. I mean, our video submissions rate has tripled in the pandemic. It's fantastic. But again, this is the point of conscious intentional design. I said to my team at the start of this venture, I want our video acceptance rate to be 99.9%, because I don't want to have to reject anybody's real world sex. And so that is why we are so clear on exactly what we exist to showcase, because then we only get those submissions. And, it's worth saying our curators do a very unique job. Nobody else has this kind of role. And we recruit for, and we get extraordinary empathy and sensitivity and non-judgmental approaches. And by the way, you know, again, because we don't get enough credit for everything we do to create a completely safe space for real world sex. When I said earlier that we curate every single comment on every single video, that includes checking with every single one of our Make Love Not Porn stars. And by the way, we build a personal relationship with every one of our contributors. Again, nobody else does that. We know every one of them, we communicate with them individually, we have personal relationships, and we check with each of them what kind of comments they are open to on their videos and what they're not. Because our members, by the way, are amazing. We've built a community around shared sexual values, the respect and gratitude that they show Make Love Not Porn is amazing. You know, and all their comments are very well-meaning, but maybe they will use language that a Make Love Not Porn star would rather not see in the comments, and we will curate accordingly. We customize and tailor our curation to what each Make Love Not Porn star feels they do and don't want to see in the comments. Nobody else goes anywhere near anything like that level of respect for their contributors.
Wow.
I know your site is worldwide, universal.
Yep.
Do you notice a difference in the, I don't know whether to say the submissions or the attitudes in those videos coming from the US, coming from Europe, coming from, say, South America? You know, I think we always feel here in the US that, you know, people are a little uptight about sex compared to maybe other countries. Do you see that?
No. People having great sex are having great sex, you know, all around the world. But I will say that, you know, what is very frustrating is I designed Make Love Not Porn to be the Facebook of social sex. And I use that comparison deliberately because that is the scale I designed it to operate at. I knew 12 years ago that if I wanted to counter the global impact of porn as default sex ed, I would have to come up with something that at least had the potential one day to be just as mass, just as mainstream, and just as all-pervasive in our society as porn currently is. So I was thinking big right from the get-go. The only thing that has stood in the way of that vision is not remotely our global response. People love us. Everywhere they find out about us, they love us. The issue is them finding out about us, because we fight a battle every single day to build this business. Every piece of business infrastructure, any other tech startup gets taken for granted. We can't. The small print always says no adult content. I can't get funded. I can't get banked. It took me 4 years to find one bank here in America that would allow me to open a business bank account for Make Love Not Porn. Biggest operational challenge is payments. PayPal won't work with adult content, Stripe can't. Every tech service we need to use, hosting, encoding, encrypting, the terms of service always say no adult content. We had to build our video sharing platform from scratch as proprietary technology because existing streaming services will not stream adult content. Even something as simple as sending out membership emails. MailChimp won't work with adult content. Rejected by 6 or 7 till we found SendGrid who would. A couple of years ago, I needed a UX, a contract user experience designer. I put a job description up on Upwork. 20 minutes later, they took it down. They told us we could not post job descriptions on Upwork because we are Make Love Not Porn. And so one of my biggest frustrations is we cannot advertise. We can't advertise on Facebook, Instagram, any social channel. We can't advertise in traditional channels either. The MTA will not let us advertise on billboards and on the subway. And that is what is massively inhibiting our growth. Because when people find out about Make Love Not Porn, they are desperate for us. People search for us every day around the world without knowing that we exist. The top search terms that drive traffic to us are make love, not porn, real sex, not porn, make love, not porn, when they don't know that a venture exists that's actually called that. One young man told us he found us when he Googled porn that is not porn. He was so fed up with what was out there. You know, he wanted something different, had no idea what to search for. And when you Google porn that is not porn, you find Make Love Not Porn. But that is how much we are filling a huge market gap. People are desperate for what we offer. And yet we don't have the funding, we don't get the infrastructure, and we don't get the ability to advertise. And by the way, number one on that list solves the other two. If I can raise the kind of funding I need you'd be amazed how quickly those advertising barriers fall when I write them a big enough check.
Absolutely. So you're doing a lot of things at the same time. You're trying to change the conversation. You're creating a venture, fighting a lot of headwinds, and you're really leading the charge to change the conversation and bring attention to this space. What's next? What are you going to add to that litany of responsibilities and challenges that you're trying to really overcome?
I think that's quite enough to be going on with, Rachel.
I would agree, but I know you. There's always something more.
No, that battle is never ending. But as I mentioned earlier, I am feeling very encouraged by where we are at now in 2021, because first of all, the pandemic has ensured the world will never be the same again. And that is actually very good news for those of us who are never the status quo to begin with. Because it's only when everything breaks down this utterly and completely, that allows new models and new ways of doing things to emerge that never would have otherwise. And so what is really great for all of us who operate in this space is that the pandemic has proven that what everybody thought for decades is not the case. For years, people are going, the future's digital, VR this, AR that. Boy, oh boy, has the pandemic ever proven that what we are all desperate for on the other side of this is IRL human touch.
Absolutely. Connection,
love, intimacy, sex. And so I am seeing massive mindset shifts around this. And by the way, at a very practical level, something very interesting happens when everybody is in lockdown. Because when you have whole families on top of each other, when you have couples spending way more time together than is the norm, barriers around perfectly natural human instincts and behavior really break down. When the whole family's in lockdown, the fact your teenage son is masturbating behind his bedroom door is something you've got to face up to. You know what I mean? At the most, and so I'm really seeing much less embarrassment and much more openness around perfectly natural, universal human sexual and human sexual experience. And to my mind, that is absolutely also driving a real shift in people's attitudes and behavior that is very, very good for us.
Couldn't agree more. And with the focus on self-care, that just fosters this even more. We could talk for hours. We have so much of interest in the subject matter. We can't thank you enough for joining us and educating us. And I think I have a new tool for my patients who come in with lower libido and in need of education. So thank you, Cindy. It's been a real pleasure.
No, total pleasure. And honestly, I'm so happy that you are recommending us for your patients, because we are actually very keen that many more doctors and therapists and counselors do that. We're actually sponsoring the ASECT virtual conference this year.
Oh, wow.
To encourage every therapist there to see us as a unique resource.
Well, to tell you the truth, you'd take a lot off of our plates, because every person comes to the sexual table with different desires and values and customs, and your site really allows them to pick and choose without us having to give them a list that could be offensive or not adequate. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for joining us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for making sure that these conversations are showcased. I really appreciate it.
Great to see you. I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for taking the time, Cindy.
Absolute pleasure. Take care.
See you soon.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast at businessofthev.com for the latest trends and trendsetters in women's health and business.